Okay, everyone, we're going to do the mock exam FRQ number 2. And so here you can see the FRQ, which I reproduced for you here. And so we're going to work through this, and then I have a formula sheet for you further to the right that I'm going to reference as we work through this FRQ. So this FRQ is probably really easy for you if you had memorized the formulas. If you didn't have memorized the formulas, it was probably rather difficult for you. And so let's go ahead and read it. A movie theater company obtains the following estimated elasticities of demand. So remember, elasticities are trying to measure the sensitivity of one thing to changes in another thing. So elasticities of demand, price elasticities of demand are trying to measure the sensitivities of quantity demanded to changes in price. And then income elasticity demand is trying to measure the sensitivity of quantity demanded to changes in income. And so if the quantity demanded of a good goes up as your income goes up, then it's a normal good. And if the quantity demanded of your good goes down as your income goes up, then it's an inferior good. And then finally, cross-price elasticity of demand is trying to measure sensitivities of changes, or trying to measure the sensitivity of quantity demanded of one good to changes in price of another good, right, to determine whether goods are complements or substitutes. Right, so we don't have elasticities of supply or price elasticity of supply, which is one of the other elasticities we calculated in our class in this FRQ. But remember, you still need to know the formula. And it's it's the same as the formula for price elasticities of demand. And I'll show you there's two ways you can calculate price elasticity of demand. And so for our first example, first it says we have the absolute value of short-run price elasticity of demand is 0.85. And so this number right here, absolute value, is super important because we know there's going to be a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded of a good. And so we're just trying to determine the magnitude of that change, right? If the price goes up, what is going to be the magnitude of that fall in quantity demanded? And so really, when we put it into a formula, right, and we calculate price elasticity of demand, and they already put it into this formula for us, and they came up with the number 0.85, we should get a negative 0.85. And then because it shows this negative relationship between price and quantity demanded, but of course we care about the percent change in quantity demanded, specifically if it's a greater percent change than price, or if it's a smaller percent change than the percent change in price. I know that gets a little bit abstract, but maybe I should just roll you over to the formulas to show you. So here's are your formulas that if you had committed to memory, it should have been a very easy exam. So point elasticity is the percent change in quantity demand, point elasticity and arc elasticity. These are two ways we can calculate the price elasticity of demand and the price elasticity of supply. Not respectively, like we can calculate the price elasticity of demand two different ways. We can calculate the price elasticity of supply two different ways. And the reason is that the statistic that we get with arc elasticity is always going to be the same, no matter if we go up or down the demand curve, right? No matter if we start off, so it doesn't really matter what our new Q or old Q is. We're going to get the same statistic either way because the base is going to be the average of those two numbers, right? Now with point elasticity, as you can see here, it's calculated by the percent change in quantity demanded over the percent change in P, and then we end up with Q new minus Q old over Q old, P new minus P old over P old. It really matters. You're going to get a different number depending what number you consider to be Q old, right? So if you go up the demand curve or down the demand curve, you're going to give you can get a different statistic, right? And so arc elasticity isn't necessarily a more precise measure of elasticity, it's just more consistent. We get the same number irrespective of what number we consider to be Q new or Q old. We're going to get the same statistic than point elasticity. Okay, so price elasticity of demand and price elasticity of supply, we can calculate these two ways, and they're trying to measure the sensitivity of quantity demanded and quantity supplied to changes in price, right? And so once we put the number in these formulas, we get a statistic. So in part A, we got 0.85, right? We actually got negative 0.85, but that shows the negative relationship between quantity demanded and price. And so we're just going to find the absolute value of that with the quantity demanded. And so we get 0.85. And we find out that demand, if we put it on this scale, is going to be inelastic as opposed to elastic demand. Inelastic means not very sensitive to changes in price. What this means is that so inelastic means not very sensitive to changes in price. And then elastic means very sensitive to changes in price. Okay, so we're good for that for now. So memorize these formulas. Then income elasticity of demand is the percent change in quantity demanded of the good over the percent change of income. And we said that goods that you buy more of as income goes up, they are going to be normal, and goods that you buy less of as incomes go up are going to be inferior. Well, once we do this calculation, we should get a positive or a negative. If we get a positive, it's a normal good. If we get a negative, it's an inferior good. And then finally, cross-price elasticity demand. We use it to determine whether goods are substitutes or complements. So percent change in quantity demanded of X over the percent change of price of Y. If it's a positive number, we have substitutes. If it's a negative number, we have complements. I can explain the logic of that later. I think I've done it before in previous YouTube videos, but I'm sure you can also figure it out on your own. I'm sure I've done it in previous YouTube videos. Okay. So then for part one, it says what happens if the price of the good goes up by 10%. So the good they're talking about, that I list this, is actually movie tickets. So movie tickets have a short-run price elasticity of demand of 0.05 or 0.85.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead. So if the price goes up by 10%, by what percentage and what direction will the quantity demanded for movie tickets change in the short run? We know there's a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded, right? And that should be expected. So we also know the calculation that we get, and we're going to use that formula where we have percent change of quantity demanded over percent change in price. And we know price is going to go up by 10%, and so we're trying to find out what is the percent change in quantity demanded. So multiply by 10%, multiply by 10%, and we get 8.5% is going to be the percent change in quantity demanded. Did you see that? So 8.5%. Remember, this is the absolute value of this short-run price elasticity of demand, and so really it's going to go in the negative direction. So you could just put the negative number, or you could say in the short run, 8.5% fall in quantity demanded, right? We still see it's relatively inelastic, because what is inelastic, right? The price elasticity of demand of this good is inelastic with a 10% increase in price, because the quantity demanded of the good only falls by 8.5%, which is less than 10%. So it's inelastic. It's less sensitive to changes in price. And then it asks, why is short-run price elasticity of demand not equal to long-run price elasticity of demand? So we can see long-run price elasticity of demand is considerably more elastic. Right? 3.2 is our statistic compared to 0.85. You can just talk about over the long run, people have different options. They're able to account for changes in price much quicker than in a shorter time frame. They might make an investment in like a home movie theater system as opposed to going to the movies if the prices are high over the long run. So they can make adjustments. So that would be the answer for that. And then for C, it says, what will happen to total revenue for movie ticket sales in the long run if movie ticket prices increase? Well, we've talked about this too, right? You should, producers have a incentive to raise the price of, or to raise the price of more inelastic goods and make more revenue. And we can see right here that 3.2 is reflective of a very elastic demand curve. So if you increase the price, your revenue is going to fall, right? Because you're going to have it says explain using relative percent change in P and Q. Say that your relative percent change in quantity demanded is going to be greater than your relative percent change in price, because the price elasticity of demand is elastic. It's greater than 1, and so therefore you would have less revenue. Something along those lines. I'm not going to write that out. And then D, are movie tickets a normal good or inferior good? Well, we have the the cross price elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand is 0.75, but remember we only care about the sign, right? And so a positive sign indicates a normal good, and so you would explain that, right? You have a normal good because the income price elasticity of demand is 0.75, which is positive. And then you probably want to explain the significance of this, right? And say this indicates that as the percent change in income goes up, there's a increase in the percent change of quantity demanded of that good, reflecting, it's a normal good, right? Explanation requires a bit more analysis, and so maybe I'll type in the YouTube video like sort of the appropriate answer, but I just don't want to write it out here. And then finally it says, given the increase in price of movie tickets in Part A, what would be the impact on demand for good X? Well, we know good X, I think it says, the cross price elasticity of demand for good X with respect to the price of movie tickets is negative 0.26. That negative means that they're complements. And as the price of movie tickets goes up, the quantity demanded of movie tickets is going to drop, right? Because there's a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. And since these are complements, right, they're bought with each other, so this might be stuff like popcorn and stuff like that, then we would expect the demand curve for this example, right? Let's just pretend this good X is popcorn, to shift to the left, right? A leftward shift in the demand for good X, right? They're complements. There are substitutes in the increase in price of movie tickets. People would, go purchase the substitute, which could be something like, I don't know, a mini golf tickets or stuff like that. But since they're complements there, if the quantity demanded of one falls, then the demand curve of the other is going to shift to the left. Okay, we're done.